having this discussion. I'm so inspired by what you're saying. I'm thinking about this idea of vision, right? Of being able to see, which in the context of Hayden is, is really interesting, right? Because within the framework of the Baha'i faith, people of African descent are referred to as the pupil of the eye, right? That the light enters the eye through the pupil, right? So our ability to see is made possible because of that pupil, right? So, and that vision is both material and also spiritual. So Hayden is impaired on the material side, but he seems to be able to tap into a spiritual vision in a very deep way, and then to articulate it because of his gift, his innate ability, which is honed through training, and to give us this vision of a world in a very profound and deeply resonant way, right? That kind of elevates our collective ability to see, this context. And I'm wondering if you could talk about the irony of that, that how that kind of is stitched together in a way.
Mm. Yeah, you said a lot in there that's really, fascinating and I think important. And one of the things that I want to sort of pull out from what you just said, right, is the honing of the craft, right? Because it's not as though Hayden or any other person just emerges spontaneously with this kind of creative gift that's unhoned, right? That, sometimes there are these ways of fetishizing Black creative ability as though it comes innate and it's just natural, right? And that then kind of neglects the incredible work that people put into their crafts, right? And of course, Hayden was as committed and as dogged as any literary creator that there was in terms of his commitment to creating the best art that he could, right? So on the one hand, right, there's this kind of almost mystical element of creative vision that is born out of hardship, right? That is born out of material lack, which is then compensated for seemingly by creative mass, if you will, right? And so on the one hand, we have that sort of polarity working, but then I think it's so wise to bring in, like, just don't think that that's some kind of reflexive, organic operation that happens without people putting in incredible work. Hayden was one of these people that put in incredible work. He studied so much, he read everything, he was so observant, right? And if we go back to that, that kind of observational quality that we had, then I think we can tie that back to perhaps the Black experience in modernity, right? When you are deprived of certain kinds of sensory apparatus, as Hayden was, right? You must then compensate for that deprivation using other means, right? So if Hayden wasn't quite able to participate in the world like other young people could, and if he was separated by it from these very thick glasses, and in fact, he was nearly blind, right? He had to develop these observational qualities that made his work so profound and so powerful. In a way, he developed what we could call like a second sight. Right. And this is a kind of ancient idea within human cultures, right? That one who is deprived of the capacity for normal vision, right, is then endowed with a kind of mystical ability to see things that others can't. W.E.B. Du Bois attributed that same kind of second sight to African American people at large as a community, right? Being deprived of certain capacities for freedom within the American context, for being recognized as fully human, then Black people had to develop a understanding of their world and their social context, and particularly those things that could bring people through difficulty and hardship in a way that other communities were not forced into, right? So maybe the second sight, which is a capacity that we can see working in African American communities, and which has been honed
Yes.
by certain artists, right? Maybe that emerges from not being availed of certain kinds of opportunities, which, you know, others are. And I think that we see it kind of doubly working within Hayden in the way that you pointed out earlier, right? These double or triple alienations and marginalizations, right? He's not just Black and poor, he's also Black and poor and alienated to a certain degree from that Black and poor community. Therefore, that kind of enhances his sight, right? So that his vision is so powerful. And then add on to that the kind of meticulous honing of craft, and you get the genius that we see in Hayden's poetry.